Okay, so I just found out that there is some kind of clash between lectures in this course and in another course that some are participating in. So they have a lecture at the same time as me, as is right now. Good thing this is recorded then, so those students can watch this recording later on. I got a question before the break, and I would like to address that to everyone. The examination, the first assignment, there is a writing that is a little hard to understand. It's this one, part 4. So the question is more or less, okay, so we are supposed to add like blog articles to this page. Should we do that in a dynamic way, like having a field and posts to this page? No, you're not. Fake it till you make it. It's just faked blog articles that you write. The most important thing here is that you have the semantics correct, and so that every part or every blog post is its own article, maybe with a header and a footer, so that it's isolated. You just write them into the code. There is no need to dynamically add them in any way. What I mean by it should be easy to add articles is that, I mean, the code should be clean. It should be easy to see how the articles like are stacked. I need to change that meaning. Yes.
How long do the articles have to be? I mean, there's only so much.
You can fake the articles as well. Just copy and paste random lorem ipsum text or whatever. It's often good to have more text just to see how the page will behave instead of just writing hello, because that's not realistic. So try to mimic a blog article, but you do not need to write it yourself. I mean, okay, of course you can't just steal someone else's articles, but you could take gibberish code or text.
But you still have to answer these questions here.
Those questions, yeah, oh yeah, good. I have so many assignments, and in other courses it's not like this. So yeah, those questions should be addressed. Yeah, but you could always, I mean, address them on top of the page, and then you can add faked articles at the bottom if you like.
Okay, so we should write articles about that.
Yeah, those questions should be answered.
Nice.
You could if okay, so we will not have an oral hearing, but if we had, we would probably ask those questions as well. And we might on the second assignment. So to prepare yourself, you could answer them in the text. Anything else that has come up during the break? Okay, let's continue then. Oh, I need to do that. Yeah. Okay, leaving the conditional statements and going into iterators, loops. Oh, well, we were on loops actually, or iterations. We discussed the for statement. We have break, we have continue. Works the same way as in Java. I'm not a huge fan of break or continue, but if you like, you're of course free to use them. I will skip them. Comments, making comments, you have more or less 3 different types. You have the single row comments. It's hard to see, right? I could say that you have those if you have a computer, you have those slides on the course homepage, so you could always have the slides in front of you if you like, and just go along. So we have the classical row comment. I think in this code standard that you can add them wherever you like. Yep, doesn't complain. In some code standards you're not allowed to do this. but this in this code standard it's okay. In some code standards you need to have a blank line before a comment. You can in this one, but you don't need to have that. We have the multi-line comment, same as in Java. Nothing strange about that one. And we have the doc comments with 2 stars in the beginning. Make it so we can have, I think you're used to, some of you at least are used to Java docs, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's kind of the same format for JavaScript documentation, and to be able to automatically make documentation and also help developer tools understand your code better. Yeah, that's it. If you regarding comments, you need to, when we have the examination assignment, I mean, my philosophy documenting is, okay, you're supposed to use JSDocs comment because that will help us in the end. Other comments, use them when necessary. Don't over comment. Don't like comment for your mother or father. I often see comments like this. Oh well, it's good if my father were supposed to read this, but so don't overdo it. Have comments where necessary. We will state in the assignment if it's a must to have JSDoc comments or not. Of course, I would like if you add them, but if we don't say, you don't need them. I don't know. Do you in Java? Do you usually have Java? Yeah, then you're used to it. So continue. You will probably get some kind of good support in the. I haven't used this for Visual Studio yet. Oh well. You might find some extension that will do this for you, I guess. Okay, functions. You are used to methods. Methods on objects in Java, or in some languages you have the concept of functions that are not attached to an object. And in JavaScript we have something called functions that works as you're used to methods. You can, let's see, when you declare functions, you can do it in exactly the same way as when you declare variables. So we could have let say your name and age. This is the function name, equals a function with its parameters and the block of the function. I think this is quite a logical way of looking at functions. I mean, we create a function and we store it in a variable. And to call that function, we just call the identifier and add the parentheses and the arguments to the function. There are some things though. First of all, try to, when you, as I said before, when you declare functions, try to use the const keyword, because it's not good practice to like try to reassign a function to something else. If you need to do that, I don't know, then you're kind of messing up for everybody who try to read your code in the end. So I would say it's a good practice to always declare functions with const. I think you're quite used to how this works. I mean, we have a parameter and we match it with the argument sent to the function. However, if you were to do this in Java, you would get an exception. We are trying to call the function with 3 arguments when it only has 2 parameters. JavaScript is forgiving, so it will just ignore this last, or won't ignore it. It will actually be sent as an argument to the function, but we have no way, no easy way to get hold of that third argument actually. Hope it works. Yep. In Java, you could do things like this, right? Kind of this, at least. Now in Java, the right function, the function which match the arguments will be called. It's called overloading. Thank you. We do not have overloading in JavaScript. There is no way, since we don't have a hard typed language. I mean, name. In this case, we kind of intend that that should be a string, because it's called name, but there is nothing saying I can't do this or mix them up.
Can you return any type of variable?
Yep. Return is the same thing. You can whatever you return, it will be returned. You can return objects, integers, whatever. Because we don't state that we are returning, like in Java you state that this function should return an integer. It just returns, and the function always returns. I will get to that soon. So what I did, I mixed them up. I mixed up the age and the age. So hello 30, you're Ellen years old. And this works because we only concatenate. If we were to rely on age being an integer, we would get some kind of error or some bug in the code. And you would probably want to do something like that. But since we don't have, since this is loosely typed, you can send in whatever you like. And this is kind of a problem. And one of the critiques against using loosely typed languages.
But can you call the function with less parameters?
Can you call, so the question is, can you call the function with less parameters? Yes. So if we do this, whoa, run, hello Ellen, you are undefined years old. So in this case, age is undefined. I mean, you shouldn't probably play around with it. You should try to match the parameters with arguments, but there are maybe cases where this could be good.
Can we also throw exceptions?
Can we throw exceptions? Yep. I will show how to do that. Okay, so understanding the parameters and the matching against the arguments, that is essential. You will, okay, so I will skip in advance. I mean, this is kind of how I learned to program. You specify your parameters and you like try to match them with arguments. I'm not sure if this is how you still do it in like Java, but the trend in JavaScript is that you often only have, like in this case, your name and age. You just send in an object, and instead of sending parameters, you could create objects saying, okay, so this object has a name, that is Ellen, and it has an age, that is 40. And then inside of here you do things like person.name instead. This is, I mean, now we do not rely on the order of something. We only rely on the person or the developer calling the function, sending in an object with certain properties. But we will probably get back to that. For now, we'll just do it like, well, we had it before, so I can do that. Okay, so return statements. Every function is in JavaScript is returning automatically. So you can skip this part. We run it. It says undefined. So this function now is actually doing this for us. So this is the default behavior of any function in JavaScript. Of course, often when we call functions, we want the function to return something, and we return whatever we like. But we do not specify a type when we declare the function. Does it feel strange?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you see, it's, you know, the man dancing on the treadmill. Yeah, you can do. It's looser than Java.
So what would the workaround be for overloading?
What would the workaround be for overloading? Oh well, you would instead probably just send in an object of person, for instance. So, okay, you say, okay, we have something that need to operate on a person, which could have a name, could have an age, could have telephone number, and so on. And then you just need to handle it inside of the function, saying that, okay, check if there is a phone number. If there is a phone number, call that API. You could like throw an exception if you don't have a name and age, because that's required, or something like that. Then we know basic functions. And this is just as was said, that all function returns. Okay. Default parameters, you are probably used to them as well. So let's just copy this one. Oh, can't do that. I need to do it like that. Okay. Say your name and age. Parameters name and age. So I showed this before with a default operator. This is the old way of doing things. So, okay, this function, we want the name to default to no name. And we want the age to default to 18. Since we didn't have default parameters in JavaScript, this was the way to do it. So if this is something, something is returned to name. If this is undefined or null or an empty string or probably 0 because of reason, this will be returned instead. So this is kind of creating default parameters. However, since I think ECMAScript 5 could be 6, we have default parameters, so you can do it like this, like you are used to. And we can skip those. Hopefully it will work. Hello, no name, you are 18 years old. Good thing. Something that has been missing and been added from other languages. So that's a nice feature to have. Oh, it's 6. It's so hard because ECMAScript 6 is ES 2015. So the 5 and the 6 makes everything just mix up in the head. So it's ES 2015 ECMAScript 6 that added that feature. So this could be a feature that I mean, if you're developing for Internet Explorer, you will probably not have this feature. So you need to be kind of careful. But if you're developing for Internet Explorer, you will be careful in so many ways. So, okay. Remember I talked about hoisting, and I talked about block scope versus functional scope. So starting out with this example, I would just, well, I missed something, right? Yeah, no, I didn't. There are many things going on here. Okay, so first of all, just we look at the 3 rows inside of the function. We try to log the variable, then we create it, and then we log it again. And it's not a good thing that I wrote what it will end up with, but we could run it anyway. It says undefined and 10. So this one logs undefined and this one logs 10. Why do we not get an exception on this row? Because of hoisting. Because this is declared with var, this will happen. This variable will be hoisted to the top and declared down here. And now we can see, okay, so the variable is created, but it's undefined. Then we log it, says undefined. Then we assign 10, and then we log it, and it says 10. So this is hoisting. The same thing happens with the function. So if we just do something like this, it says test, but what do you think will happen if we do it like that? Suggestions? Undefined?
No, same.
Once again.
Same. It's gonna be the same result.
0?
No, same.
Yeah, the same as the last. Yeah. Exception. What happens here is, even though we're declaring with const, even if we were to declare with var, just to show that there shouldn't be a difference, still an exception. So this happens. So the scope is undefined. We try to run undefined as a function, and that will throw an exception saying that the scope is not a function, because undefined is not a function. So when you declare function in this way, the order matters. You can't execute a function that you have declared later in the code. Oh well, that could pose a problem in certain applications. There is another way. This way, the function declaration that I have shown here. Yeah, I need to check if it's called declaration or I'm always messing. Oh, where are we? How? Yeah, he's dancing still. Stop. Thank you. So this is a function expression. So the way of writing the function, the scope, like this, is called function expression. It's just like creating a variable and declaring it a function. However, there is another way of doing this, which is more commonly used, and it's like this. Whoop. Function, the scope. So we basically, like that. We basically throw everything around. We say, okay, we have a function called the scope, like this. if we try this application now, it will work, because when we use the declaration like this, the whole function is... I'm not sure if I have like a key that is beginning to break, that it's like spamming it. Okay. I give up. Oh well. So this is what happens. The whole function is hoisted to the top, and now we can call it because it's always declared wherever we place it in the scope.
Is there any preferred way of writing it, or are they like equally correct?
I would... There are probably as many discussions about this as using semicolons or not. I would say that from a pedagogical point of view, I would actually argue that this way is better. Because this will make you understand functions better. And I will come back to why. So I tend to prefer this way. Often it doesn't matter, because you attach the function to an object, like you have methods in Java. And then the order doesn't matter, because you call the function on an object. And then the order doesn't matter. It's just when you're calling functions that are written loosely like this and not attached to an object. So it will not matter so much in which order the functions are declared. Yeah.
If you define a function using the function keyword first, will it be constant, the name?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if we do it like this instead, the scope, will it... But you... Is it something like... Do I need something in the top to stop? That's strange. Is it declared as a constant, or is it declared as a var? I'm pretty sure that it's declared with var, and we could try it like... If it was a constant, this should be an exception. It's no exception, so it works. However, if I were to do it like this, const the scope, this will be an exception because it's const. So I would say it's var, actually, yes. if you use the other notation. Oh, thank you, silence. Yeah, so I will write an example, but just a small one. If true, what will be logged when I run the scope? When I run the program, I should say, what will happen? What is the first thing that is logged? Why? Undefined is there.
Yeah, because you haven't called the function.
So this one will run first. J isn't defined, so it will say undefined. Then we call the function. What will this one log? 10. Exception. J is not defined. Yeah. It's a good guess. I was with you almost. But what happens with this one, with the J? Where is it valid?
Inside the scope.
Yeah, inside the scope. And with the scope in this case for J is the function, because we have functional scope. So what happens is this. Var J. It's like that. So we can't call it outside a function because we have functional scope. However, so this one doesn't work. If we were to have it like that, and we change this one to let instead, will this one work? No, because now we said that J would have block scope. So function scope and block scope, and that's the difference. If we don't have a function, the file is executed as a function in Node. It's a little bit different in the browser, but we'll come to that later. Well, when we're discussing variables, if we do it like this then, let hello equals hello. So we have a variable here. We have a function. We log hello. Will this work, you think? Hello. Yeah, it will work. If we do it like this, what will it say? Will it say hello or test? Test. So we överskuggade. What's the English word? Over. Is it overloaded as well? No. Overshadowed. Shadowed. Overrode. Override. Thank you. We overrode. We've overridden this variable with the parameter inside of the function. So JavaScript will work like this. When you try to access an identifier, hello, inside of this scope, it will look inside of the scope for this identifier. If it can't find it, if we don't have an identifier with a name hello, it will move up one scope and look in the scope above. And it will do this all the way up to the kind of global scope, the last scope. If it doesn't find it there, it will raise an exception. Yep.
Could you have a let expression inside the function? So you could say like let hello and some other value?
Yep. You can do it like this. Hi. Now, this is a local variable, and this is a variable outside of the function. So they are completely different variables. They are they are on different in the stack. They are on different places. They are in the function scope and in the scope outside. This means that we can do things like damn it. Sorry. We can do things like this. Will we be able to call the scope now, you think?
Misspelled const.
I misspelled something.
Yeah, outer function. Const.
Oh, thank you. That's why it's red. Okay. Will we be able to access the scope from here, you think? No. No, you can't. Because that's inside another scope. However, we could, of course, do something like that and call the outer function. Sorry for the semicolon. And it works. So we can nest functions inside of functions. And you see that hello still works. No, we do not see that because I added that one. Now we could try it. And it still works. It finds hello. So it will look inside of the inner function. It doesn't find hello. It will move up to the outer function, doesn't find hello, and then it will move up to the global scope. So if we do let hello equals hi here, ho, who, it will find this one before it finds the outer one. Okay, that's how it works. Okay. Functions that are not named, we often call anonymous functions. And in this case, we could, this is completely valid JavaScript. Like that. It doesn't do much, but oh, it's not valid. Sorry. We could probably make it valid. No, couldn't. Damn it. Well, anyways. This part of the function, if we don't assign it to a variable, this one is called an anonymous function. And in JavaScript we have another concept, and that is called higher order functions. And functions in JavaScript are higher order functions. That means that functions can be sent as arguments to other functions. And now we're starting to trip out. We could create functions, and we could send those functions as arguments to other functions so that other functions can execute the functions we send to them. In the same manner, we could return functions from functions. So you could call a function and get a function back, and then execute that function. And that is the concept of higher order functions. And that is why I like this notation better. Because this kind of implies that a function is nothing more than just something you store in memory in a variable. It's just a reference to something in memory. Happens to be a function, but you could store objects, you could store strings and integers. I think I have an example that I will copy. Oh, we have it here. Yeah. Let's do that. Oh, it's so hard to... Let's call it just get. This function get will return a new function that will console log hello. Okay. And we call get. We run it. Won't do much. Nothing, actually. But what did we get back from get? What did get return from get in this case? A function. So we could do it like this. So we're calling get, and what is returned we store in a new variable called say hi. And say hi is a function, so we could call it like that. Hello. Of course, you don't need to store it in a variable if you don't like. You could just do it like that. Have you worked with like what's it called? Matrices like three-dimensional arrays inside of arrays? Then you're familiar with the concept. I mean, nothing says that this couldn't return a function, and a function, and a function, and a function. Of course. So running this, hello. And I think it's easier to understand functions when you see that you can store them in variables. This one, does it have a name? No. It's an anonymous function. Doesn't have a name, it doesn't have an identifier, so we cannot access that function without first invoking get and getting that function back. Of course, we could take the reference to that function and store it in a variable, and it's not anonymous anymore. We have a reference to the function. What happens if I do this? What? Will that work?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, say hi is a reference to that function. What this does, row 10, is that it takes the reference and assigns that same reference to what. And so we can say what, and we can say hi. Hello, hello. And you can add another one, and you could like have references to functions. Is it confusing, or is it kind of make sense? Kind of confusing, kind of makes sense. When the hell are we going to use this? We will see. Yeah?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, when are we going to use it?
Okay, that was the question. Yeah, it will actually, the example I showed with like iterator functions, it made use of this. But we'll get there. We just need to understand the concept of higher order functions that are actually a powerful concept. This one I've already done. Think, yep. Okay. This way of writing functions is the good old way of, yeah. We could have, okay, I will add one other concept actually. I will add the concept of pure functions. Have you heard the concept of pure functions? Functions without a side effect. Make sense? Have you heard it? Okay, so this is actually, that is a concept of, I mean, when you call a function, let's see if I can do it like this. I have, yeah. This is our function. We call it with x and y, and we get z out of the function. this function does not have any side effects. It doesn't rely on anything more than x and y, and it will not alter anything outside of the function. So you will be sure that if you set x to something and y to something, you will always get set back. There will not be kind of a clock or something that alters the result when you send in. So given two arguments, you will always get the same result back. And this function will not alter anything outside of it, like try to put something in a database or change the value of an object somewhere. That is a pure function. So if I mean the difference between this, if I run that one, whoa, mixed. It says hi. This is a pure function because it will always return hi if we don't have an argument. Of course, I could have like x and y and return x plus y. It's still a pure function because this one, if I send in 10 and 3, it will always return 13. However, if I do this, I would say this is not a pure function anymore. It's exactly the same. I've just moved the console log inside of the function, but I added side effects. So when running the function, the side effect is that we will get something written in the console. So this is not a pure function anymore. And often we want to strive to try to write pure functions because, first of all, they are much easier to test. To test a pure function is really simple. To test the functions that rely on other things is harder to test. I just wanted to like let you know of the concept of pure functions because you will probably find it in the book and when you check on online reference and such. So pure functions or functions without side effects. So that's why we should like try to return the result, and if we would like to log the result, we can do that outside of the functions instead. Somewhere in our programs we probably will need some kind of side effects, right? Especially when we are working with the web, we will need to alter the user experience in some way, change the behavior of the page. But we should maybe not try to mix that with the logic of the page. And we have the MVC and yeah. Okay. We will take a short break, and after the break we will find even another way of writing functions, because as I said, in JavaScript you can do things in many different ways, and in ES6 we got a new way of writing functions, so we will have a look at that after the break. 10 minutes. Yeah, always get exciting questions during the break, so I have one new question I will address. Someone asked me about the, let's see what it was called, enhanced for loops in Java. They are like for string, oh, it's string, right? str colon array, and you will, str will be the content of an array of strings every time this loop runs. This is kind of like the newer for each that I will show you soon, but we have something in JavaScript called for in, like this. So you have for var key in my array, then key for each iteration will be like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. However, this one is kind of, if you look in the good parts, Crockford will probably tell you not to use it. And that is because in the old implementation of JavaScript or standard, it didn't say in which order the key should return. So that's totally up to the interpreter. It could be like, if it's an array of 3 indexes, 0, 1, and 2, it could be like 1, 2, 0. You don't know. And that could be differ from different interpreters. So it was like, don't use it because you really don't know what will happen. I think most of the interpreters will go from 0 to length. Yep.
But isn't this mostly used for objects?
Yeah. Isn't this mostly used for object? Yeah, it is, but I haven't touched upon objects, so that was why. I think if you, there is some kind of snippet, I kind of, yeah. No. There. So you use this to iterate keys in objects, for instance, but we will touch upon that next time. Okay. As I said, you can write functions in other ways. One problem with this is that when we start looking at methods, that is stepping ahead. Okay, so first of all, this is one way of writing functions. There is another way called arrow functions. And this is what is in other languages, I think, referred to as lambda expressions. I think we have them in C# and we have them in Java as well. So if I were to write this with arrow function, it would look like this. Oh, messing up. Okay. Say hi to. Okay. Yeah. Okay, 12. So those two are the same thing. This is just another way of expressing it with an arrow function.
Do you need to have it on the same line?
Do you need to have it on the same line? No, you don't. And I mean, if the function grows, you will probably have it like that instead. However, there is a short, and I said this is a side effect. Often we do not want side effects, so we will just do a return x and y. If you do that, you could remove the brackets and the expression on the right side will be automatically returned. So those are the same thing. Hopefully. It doesn't work because we need to log it outside instead. This is a much shorter way of writing it. There is a difference when it comes to scope as well, or binding, how the function is invoked on objects when we talk about methods, and how this will be handled inside of the function. But that is for next week, when we start to use classes and objects and things like that. But this is a shorthand. If we only have one parameter, we could omit the parentheses. So we could do like that. Hopefully it will be 20. And as it turns out, this kind of syntax is really neat when you start using map, reduce, iterative functions. Because you can write quite easy to read code on one line that chains a lot of function calls together. And remember, if we want to be advanced, this one, no, we don't. I mean, this one, of course, could return a new arrow function. But then the code will start to be quite hard to read. So that's an arrow function. Yeah, nested scopes. I've touched upon this already, but inside of outer scope, you could have functions inside of a function, and they will create their own scopes. And of course, as I said, outside of the outer scope, you can't invoke functions of the inner scope. Sorry, I forgot to change the image on this. But I've shown that already, so that shouldn't be a problem. Okay. Now we get to the concept of closures. And closures is kind of hard to grasp the concept of in the beginning. But you could say that closures are, or well, we could run the example instead. We start off without using arrow functions. So what we got here is a function called multiplier, which will return a function in itself. That means we could use the multiplier to create new functions that will multiply with a certain number. So if we want a function that always will multiply with 2, we could call multiplier with a 2 and get a new function back. And this function twice will always multiply what you send into twice by 2. So by doing this, we take advantage of something called I forgot closures. We take advantage of something called closures, and we say that because if we look at it, what happens? So we run the function multiplier with a 2. So factor is 2. We return a function that takes a parameter number, which takes that number and multiply with a factor, which we know is 2. But this function returns, it should like return everything to the stack, right? So the 2 should not be in memory anymore. But when we call twice this function, it has access to the 2 still, even though multiplier returned ages ago. And if we run it, 10, so works. And this is the concept of closures. We say that the inner function has a closure to the outer function. it actually remembers the outer functions variables, so it can access them even though the outer function has returned. You can do some really trick things with this one. It's not too easy to get your head around. If you thought recursion was hard, this is like, whoa. Could you do recursion with the, I mean, you could always do recursion because you can always like call multiplier with something if you like. And yeah, I don't want to spontaneously do a recursions example because I will probably mess it up. So this is a concept that is good to know, that an inner function can always access the outer function's variables, even though the outer function has returned. If we write that one, this should be in the beginning of a lecture, because closures is probably the most hard to get thing in JavaScript. So this is the same example. However, I've replaced and written the inner one with an arrow function instead. And I don't think you need that one. Let's try it. 10. So the multiplier will return a function that takes that factor, multiplies it with that one. And so this is the same example, but with an arrow function. Yes?
If you use the console log twice, what do you have?
So if we do like this, 10 and 8.
I have another question.
Yep.
So after that console log twice, let's say I want to create a variable triple, and if I use like 3s multipliers argument, will it still remember that factor value as 2?
Once again, slower.
Sorry, it's my I was just wondering, now it's not a closure anymore. So if I call, like, let's say let triple equal multiplier and argument as 3, and then if I call that twice again, will it remember a factor as 2? Now the
Yeah, it will. No, something wrong. I like that, right? 8, 10 and 8, and we could of course call triple with 4. So, and that's a really good question, because that shows like that every time you call multiplier, you get a new closure. So if you call multiplier 20 times, you will have like 20 functions with closures to 20 different values, even if those values were the same. Yeah, eats up a little bit of memory, but it's worth it probably in the end, exactly. There was another thing I thought about. No, forgot it. Yep.
Is there like a preferred way of defining functions, like arrow functions? Is that kind of a new thing, or?
Is there a preferred ways of defining arrow functions? Like we have this new way and we have the old way. I would say it depends. As we will see in the next lecture, when we start to create methods on objects, you will probably find out that using arrow functions could be quite neat, because there is one thing I haven't told you, and that is that arrow functions and functions handle binding of objects differently. And arrow function handles that binding as you are used to in Java. So if you are creating a method and using this inside of the method, this will reference the object. Seems quite, yeah, of course. However, if you're using this notation, you could end up quite often in cases where this will refer to another object, which will pose a problem. Because in a function, this will refer to the object calling the caller of the function. So let's see if I could just. No, I think I need to introduce classes before that. But there is just bear in mind that there is one technical thing that differs functions from arrow functions, and it's really important when it comes to classes. And I think I'm pretty sure that the class syntax, the new class syntax, will has arrow functions under the hood, or the same implementation as arrow functions. So you will feel right at home if you're used to Java. I mean, most often you will probably have the functions attached to an object. But there are cases when, for instance, in the browser, if I were to just write like that in the browser and execute my code, hey, this variable will be part of the global object in the browser. That is the window object. That means that if we have different scripts running on the same site, they will all share. This will be a global variable. It will be shared for all scripts executing right now. And it could be quite a lot of frameworks and other kind of libraries that you have included in your code. And they all share this global memory. That is not a good thing, because someone else could name their variable to hey, and you will get like, those will mix up. So then you could like use functions to do something like this. Let's see if it works first of all. Yes, it does. So what I've done here is that I've created an anonymous function that is what we call a self-invoking function. So a function that calls itself. We declare the function and then we call it directly after the declaration. There is no way to calling this function ever again because we have no reference to it. It will not be saved in a variable. It will not pollute the global scope, because it will just create this bubble and we could work inside a bubble. So hey will be inside of this scope. We cannot access hey outside the scope. Failure. So this is quite a common way of encapsulating things in the browser. You will probably see, if you like look at libraries and stuff, they will probably have some kind of construction looking like this, just to hide the code from the global context so that other code can't access this code.
But you wouldn't have that problem if you use a let statement.
But you wouldn't have that problem if you were using let statement. Yeah, you would. Even if I would to do this, AI would be a global object. However, when I'm coding right now, I'm not in the browser. I am in Node, and Node will handle each file as an individual scope. So there is actually no need to do this. We will look later on modules, like dividing our code into different files and modules and importing and exporting, or requiring and exporting. But right now, when we just write code in Node, we don't need to care about this. If we were in the browser, we had to care. So if I open the browser window, you can do an inspect, then you could go to the console, and you could like start writing JavaScript here if you like. And this script will be executed in the context of this page. If I do var hey equals 12, and then start exploring yeah, we have window there. If I look at the global window object, we will probably somewhere down the line find a variable named hey. And this is not too good, right? So we could like mess up things. We could say that, oh, this focus function, let's focus, whoa, focus equals so what I did, I have, whoa, fork. Oh, what that was before, right? Yeah. So what I did was I've overridden the built-in focus function. That function is on this web page. That function is not working anymore because I assigned it to another function. I mean, in the beginning of the web, I mean, web pages weren't supposed to be that complicated. I mean, simple script and that's fine. But today, if you look at Facebook or any big like web application, you have so many libraries working together, and this is kind of a problem if scripts try to like alter built-in functions. It's like you could just I'm not sure, can you like override print line in Java, and it will. Not sure. Why should you? Oh, well, but you could do all kind of creepy stuff in the browser, and this is, yeah, this one is one way of like trying to get ourselves into a bubble and don't do those things. However, regular expressions. How many love regular expressions? Hands up. Oh, you are a few. There is a saying, you know that, right? If you're trying to solve a problem with regular expressions, you have two problems. Okay. No? Well, I'm not a huge fan of regular expressions. They are quite useful sometimes. You can use them in the same way as you do in Java. So you add a slash and then the regular expression. You can do things like replace, find, search, and match, and whatever. It's in the language. You have a resource here if you want to learn more. I will not go into detail about regular expressions. Got a question about error handling. Can a function throw an error? And it can looks, yes, I think like you're used to, right? In the standard JS, I just want to mention, you always need to act upon the error in some way. You cannot just do like this, because standard will say standard JS will say that error must be acted upon. It's just something in that library. You have the finally, you have the throw new error, and you catch. This looks kind of like Java-ish as well, so shouldn't be too unfamiliar. And new is a keyword that is not that often used in JavaScript. You will see it now and then. It does more or less the same thing that in Java does, creating an object from a prototype function or a constructor function, which is kind of like a class, but we will look at that next time. Okay? So, to finish it off, what we have learned today. And this pretty much sums it up. I think it's quite beautiful and simple to create things in JavaScript. If you want a number, you just assign a number. If you want a string, you assign a string. If you want a boolean, you set true or false. If you want a function, you can use this arrow function syntax. If you want a regular expression, you use the // If you want an array, you use the array syntax. If you want, as we will see, an object, you use brackets to create objects. And that is maybe the strange thing here for you. You're not used to just creating objects. You're used to creating a class of which you instantiate objects. But in JavaScript, this is an object. This is just like writing let. That is the same thing. But you will probably not see this way of writing it. You will see the object literal, which is the brackets, or what are they called? Curly brackets. So that is an object. If I want the property on my object, I assign it a property. Now we have an object with a property called name, which has the value Johan. If I want another property, I add it like that. Simple, simple, simple. And this is where we will start off next time. Have you any questions? We have like 20 minutes. Yep. How can I debug in Visual Studio Code? That's a good question. Should be as simple as doing that. Then we probably need to add a configuration. I think maybe we did like that. Add configuration. Whoa. We want Node, we want to launch a program, and we want the program to launch a file. Yeah, that should be right. Do I need to? No. Save. Launch program. Debug. Okay, close that one. Run. Yeah. The only thing is that you need to set it up. And then it should be pretty much as you're used to. Probably have shortcuts as well for those. You have your watch window, your call stack, the locals. It's Microsoft, so I guess it's pretty. I think most that you need are there. I guess there are better. You could probably extend the debugger as well with plugins if you like. But yeah, it should work. So I mean, you could hook that up as well. If you don't want to write node test all the time, you could of course just run the debugger and run the code if you like. Yeah.
I think in the beginning of the lecture you mentioned that standard for the indentation and indentation of this post is 3 spacebars.
Two spacebars. Yep.
Can I modify that?
Yeah. The question is in the beginning of the course I said that the standard says 2, spacebar indentations. In the settings, I guess we could indent there. Editor tab space 2. You edit that one. You will get it to your settings. Save it to 2. Stop the debugger. Let's see. Yeah, so now it's 2. So that setting should match the standard JS setting. Go.
You could also specify the type in the object. For example, name. You can specify string.
So the question is, could you specify the name that it should be a string? No. So it's the same thing here. It's loosely typed, so we don't specify the types. However, I'm pretty sure that in the not too long distance from now, we will probably have types in JavaScript as well as being added. I think there are proposals. A popular extension to JavaScript is TypeScript. That is kind of Microsoft's take on JavaScript. Works very well together with .NET, for instance. And in TypeScript, it's like JavaScript, but you have types. That's why it's called TypeScript. I'm pretty sure we will see types, more explicit types in JavaScript soon to be. But what I know we don't have in right now. However, this is the very simplest way of creating an object. If you look at this one, and then we go to settings in Visual Studio Code, you will probably start recognizing things, right? Looks kind of like an object, and it is. So this is an object with properties. This is called JSON. This syntax is called JSON, JavaScript Object Notation. It's like the new XML. I mean, you have probably seen it like everywhere because this is the way of configuring stuff. And this is a JavaScript object. But we will get into that as well. So this is a really simple way of doing it. You could create objects more advanced, saying that you want to freeze things, that you want to have getters and setters, and yeah, but that's next lecture. Okay, so I will finish now. Now you have like beginning to get a sense of what JavaScript is. You could start doing the first exercises if you like. The exercises are completely optional, but I recommend everybody to do them because they will kind of lead you into the examination assignment. And I will be here for yet half an hour or so if you have any questions. Other than that, I'll see you next week with lectures, the second part of this lecture. And remember that the hand-in for the first assignment is postponed to the 14th. I think it's Thursday next week. Yeah. Okay, thank you.